Discover 3 sinister and spine-chilling true horror stories that haunted summer nights. Forever the cicadas buzzed, shrouded in a deceptive harmony that masked the dread creeping through Jessica's veins. Alone in her modest Cherrywood home, she fought internal demons while Lisa and Max slept, innocent to the sinister weight that pressed down on their summer nights. This place, once a sanctuary, had turned into a cage where shadows lurked just out of sight. As the darkness thickened, whispers weaved their way into her thoughts, distracting, haunting, as if a presence touched her reality. Every evening, she turned off the lights, letting the languid air filter in through the windows, mingling with the fresh-cut grass scent. But tonight, that aroma felt heavier, tainted, like a warning. The shadows on her lawn stretched and yawned, mocking her resolve. And tonight, it felt different, wrong. It started as a whisper, a murmured name barely there, slipping between the cracks of her thoughts. Jessica. Panic pricked at her heart, her hands trembling as she clicked on the porch light. Nothing but the beckoning darkness met her gaze. When she discovered the chalk scrawl on her porch, the world threaded with panic. Scrawled words read, "You're being watched." The chilling edge of terror encircled her heart. Was it kids playing pranks, or something darker? Mr. Thompson, who inhabited the house across the street, had been loitering outside far too often lately. With his unsettling grin, he appeared more phantom than neighbor. Their exchanges felt rehearsed. It was as if he relished her fear beneath the thin layer of kindness. Every time she saw him, her skin prickled, creating waves of dread all the way down to her core. As the days slipped by, Jessica sank into paranoia. Each whisper fed her anxiety, dragging her down, deeper into chilling roots of Cherrywood's past. Stories of children who vanished during summer nights echoed in her mind, tragedies that drifted like mist, lingering on whispered tongues. She wanted to dismiss them as mere folklore, but her unease brewed too strong. She began investigating, untangling threads of history that connected Mr. Thompson to families whose laughter had drifted away with the summer wind, a phantom helper in their dark, unthinkable tragedies. With fury growing in her veins, she reached out to neighbors, desperate to find some familiarity in their shared fears. But together, they only spun tighter webs of suspicion and paranoia. Their safety net became a pit of dread. Murmurs shot through the gathering like arrows. Whispers filled the room, tying her heart in knots. The shifting shadows outside grew bolder, and a stifling darkness settled over them. Then, it was the blackout. Suddenly, darkness swallowed Cherrywood whole. She clutched Lisa and Max tightly, tasting the panic that laced the air. The night seemed to hum with malignancy, and the laughter of children twisted into an eerie mockery, terrifying echoes that snaked around her heart. They huddled together, a flickering candle the only light illuminating their faces. Just when she thought they could escape the suffocating gloom, a shadow crossed their door, stopping her breath. The unmistakable form of Mr. Thompson, now more menacing than ever, voice as gritty as gravel. "I've been waiting for you. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue." Her heart raced, every beat echoed in her ears. The oppressive weight of perception bore down on them like a storm. A flicker of hope that they might be safe shattered in an instant, leaving only raw, open terror in its wake. The night had changed forever, twisted into an incomprehensible maze where innocence no longer reigned. As Jessica's eyes locked on Mr. Thompson's haunted smile, suffocating whispers surged from the shadows, reverberating through Cherrywood like chains rattling against haunted walls. Was it too late to escape the grip of this dark summer night? Jessica's breath hitched in her throat as that malevolent grin widened, stretching across Mr. Thompson's face like a crack in the earth, ready to swallow her whole. She squeezed the hands of her children tighter, feeling their small fingers trembling against her palms. In that electric moment, the air thickened around them, laden with a venomous intent. "Waiting?" she stammered, her voice barely above a whisper, cracking under the weight of fear. "What do you want?" His eyes gleamed in the flickering candlelight, dark pools of intrigue and menace. "Oh, I'm not the one you need to worry about, Jessica," he rasped, leaning closer, his breath a chilling whisper. "It's the night that's waiting for you." The creeping dread spiraled deeper into her gut. From behind him, she could see shadows dancing, slowly slithering through the dim light, as if eager to join the terrifying confrontation. "Get away from us," Jessica shouted, her heart pounding wildly. She pushed her kids back, shielding them from the looming threat. But instead of retreating, Mr. Thompson laughed. It was a low, gut-wrenching sound that crawled under her skin and into her bones. "You think you can hide from the darkness? It always knows where to find you." He stepped closer, and Jessica caught a whiff of something rotten, like the scent of decay mixed with the oppressive stillness of the summer night. She glanced behind him, scanning the darkness outside. What else lay hidden in the void? Instinctively, her panic flared. "Stay back," she yelled again, though she doubted her own shaking attempt at bravado. Then, a fleeting shadow dashed past the window, a blur of motion barely visible against the darkened glass. It didn't belong to Mr. Thompson. This was something else. Something alive and hungry. Jessica's stomach twisted with fear as her mind raced. "Did you see it?" she gasped to Lisa and Max, her voice shaking. They shook their heads, their wide eyes fixated on the looming figure before them. "We have to get out of here." Mr. Thompson's grin faded, replaced by a look of bemused interest, as if he were a puppet master reveling in the chaos he created. "Why would you run from me when the real terror is watching you right now?" He stepped back, allowing the night to spill over him like a dark cloak. "Jessica," a voice called from the shadows, twisted and distorted. It sent icy fingers crawling up her spine. "Help me," her heart thundered in her chest, matching the frantic rhythm filling her head. "Lisa, Max, listen to me. We're leaving now." She grabbed their hands and turned to the door, but it suddenly burst open, slamming against the wall as if pushed by an unseen force. A gust of chilling wind swept through the house, extinguishing the flickering candle. Darkness enveloped them. In the pitch black, cold tendrils coiled around Jessica's breaths, tightening her chest. She could hear the shadows whispering, enticing her with sweet promises. Then came the laughter, a terrible joyful echo resonating through the void, wild and chaotic, a cacophony of unearthly glee. Panic surged. There had to be a way out. She stumbled backward, stepping into the unknown. Would they find sanctuary beyond the terror, or would the night swallow them whole? The wind howled, and the whispers grew hungrier. Just as she felt a pull from the depths of the darkness, a sudden vision flashed, faces of the children from the stories, those lost in Cherrywood, floating in the void of her memory, imploring her. "Mom," Max yelled, his little voice piercing through the madness. "What?" she shouted back, gripping their hands tighter. "We need to find the light." But the shadows swirled closer, their whispers merging into a maddening crescendo, ready to consume her as they fought to find their way. A single thought blazed through. The darkness would not let them go without a fight. There's nowhere to hide. Mr. Thompson's voice sliced through the chaos, echoing like a death knell. Jessica's heart raced. The time had come. Either they escaped the talons of the dark or became part of its haunting history. With every ounce of courage, she whispered, "Hold on tight." What awaited them in the heart of that suffocating night? Would they uncover the truths lying in the shadows, or would the darkness claim them forever? A suffocating silence enveloped Jessica and her children, thick with tension and fear. All that could be heard was the harsh pounding of her heart, each beat echoing like a drum in her ears. The shadows closed in, a swirling mass of darkness that felt alive, writhing and breathing. She tightened her grip on Lisa and Max, pulling them closer, knowing they couldn't let go, not now. "Mom, I can't see," Lisa whimpered, her voice trembling. "Just stick with me," Jessica urged, halting her breath, focusing on their small figures wrapped in the darkness. "We're going to find a way out." But as she stepped forward, the floor creaked ominously beneath her feet, the old wood groaning as if warning her to turn back. The presence seemed to grow stronger, a malign weight pressing against her from all sides. Jessica's instincts screamed at her. Every hair on her body stood on end. Jessica came, that eerily distorted voice again, closer now, like a distorted lullaby full of malice. It sent a wave of cold dread cascading down her spine. "Who are you?" she shouted into the void, defiantly challenging whatever lay in the darkness. "Just a friend, waiting," it sang back, the laughter dripping with a sinister glee. Jessica fought the urge to recoil. She felt her children grip her tighter, their fear palpable and spreading like wildfire. "We are not afraid of you," she yelled, though doubt crept into her voice. Then, without warning, an icy breeze shoved against her, almost pushing her back. Everything around them felt alive, like the house itself was a beast, its breath slowing to a crawl as it devoured their hope. Jessica tugged at the children, urging them to move forward to find the light. In the distance, a faint flicker caught her eye, a promise of safety breaking through the blanketing darkness. "Over there," she gasped, pointing towards the shimmering glow. It danced teasingly, beckoning them forward. "Mom, wait!" Max cried, his small voice cracking. "What now?" she snapped, the panic boiling beneath the surface. "Don't trust it," he stammered, looking over his shoulder, wide-eyed. "Something feels wrong." Mrs. Thompson's laughter slithered through the shadows. "So wise for one so little." The whispers oscillated around them, echoing off the walls like thousands of trapped souls. "No, we need to go," Jessica urged, her heart thundering in her chest as she kept her eyes locked on that flickering light. She stepped forward, her instincts battling against her gut feeling. But hesitation wove its way through her mind. What if Max was right? Was this light a beacon of hope, or a lure that would lead them deeper into the night? With each step, the air thickened. The light pulsed rhythmically, enticing and dangerous. Jessica felt the sharp bite of the cold against her skin. She hesitated, suddenly afraid of what might lie before them, or if waiting was even an option. "Help me," the voice called again, dragging her attention back. The tone twisted, morphing into a heart-wrenching plea that clawed at her insides. Before she could react, a shadow lunged from the darkness. Her breath caught in her throat. It brushed against her arm, icy and insistent, making her shudder. "Stay close," she shouted, her voice cracking with desperation. The children clung to her as she pulled them onward. Just as they neared the light, it flickered violently, almost vanishing, revealing a distorted figure lurking in the corners of her mind. Mom Lisa whispered fearfully, her voice barely a gasp. Jessica's pulse quickened, panic rising within her as a blood-curdling scream seemed to erupt from the shadows, the sound of someone trapped, lost in despair. "Don't look, don't listen," she barked, fighting the urge to turn. But the darkness was closing in, a creeping fog that enveloped them and constricted her sanity. With their futures hanging precariously in the balance, the way forward seemed more uncertain than ever. The echoing laughter and clicking shadows taunted her, a siren-esque song wrapping around her very being. Jessica clutched the children tighter, but just as she thought escape was within reach, the light suddenly dimmed, the air thick with pandemonium. "Hold on," she screamed, driven by a burning desire to flee, yet trapped in the fetid claws of night. What would she find when the light returned, and who would they become when the night finally let them go? Jessica squeezed her eyes shut, willing the darkness to dissolve. When she opened them, the flickering light had disappeared entirely, leaving them in a cold, impenetrable void. Her heart raced as she strained to hear anything over the terrifying silence. Where was the laughter? The distorted voice? Had they retreated, or were they just waiting, lurking, plotting? Mom Lisa whispered, trembling beside her. "Shoo." Jessica hushed, not wanting to betray her own fear. "We need to stay quiet." The hair on her arms bristled. Something shifted in the darkness, breathing an uneasiness that made her skin crawl. She moved slowly, instinctively shielding her children as they continued to press forward. The wooden floor below creaked, sounding like tortured souls lamenting her every step. That it was suddenly too quiet. She strained, listening for the gentle hum of breath or the muffled cries that had haunted them earlier. Instead, there was only silence, thick and suffocating. The taste of dread filled her mouth, a metallic tang that made her throat constrict. "Mom, I think I see something," Max whispered, a hint of excitement breaking through the fear. Jessica turned, squinting into the pitch black. "Where?" she demanded, the raw panic rising once more as she wrestled with her instinct to flee versus her desperate need to protect her children. "Right there." Max pointed, his little fingers shaking. There's light, maybe? Jessica felt the flicker of hope flutter through her chest, but was immediately drowned by a wave of caution. The shadows swirled threateningly around them, as if warning her to stay put. We can't trust it. Max, remember what you said? He tried to argue, but Jessica interrupted, instinctively pulling him closer, feeling the warmth of his body against her side. Just then, a soft whimper escaped Lisa's lips. "Mom, it's getting darker," she cried, clutching Jessica's shirt. The shadows seemed to respond, thickening, pulsing, wrapped in a calculated malice. Suddenly, the faint light flickered back into view, illuminating the room like a spectral glow. It was there, dancing and beckoning, but now it felt different. Jessica's gut churned. It felt like a trap now, glued to her like a magnet. "Don't look at it," she yelled, but the pleading from within was too strong. The distorted call rang again, softer this time. "Help me, please." Without thinking, Jessica moved forward, the instinct to rescue overpowering all rational thought. "Keep holding on," she demanded, her feet propelling her toward the light. The floor shifted underfoot, groaning beneath the weight of her urgency. It felt alive, consuming, as if it wanted to drag them down into a bottomless pit. Shadows stalked them, growing bolder and darker, twisting around the edges of her vision. They drew closer. The figure coalesced from the light. A woman. She looked familiar, with dark hair and hollow eyes that seemed to swallow Jessica whole. "I'm here to help you," the creature crooned, its voice dripping with foreboding sweetness. "Aunt Clara?" Jessica gasped, shaking her head in disbelief. The twisted resemblance sent shards of confusion swirling in her mind. Then, just as quickly, the figure morphed into a monstrous apparition, the laughter returning, sharper, more malicious. It shrieked, a sound that clawed at the edges of sanity. Jessica felt herself trapped in the cyclone of chaos, a wild scream rising within her chest. "Run!" she shouted, yanking the children's hands, forcing them into motion as she backed away from the glowing presence now merging with the shadows. The house vibrated with a fierce energy, as though it were alive, shaking with laughter that echoed in cruel delight. The air grew thick with a stench of decay, and Jessica's heart plummeted. "Where do we go?" Max whimpered. "I don't know," she shouted, fear corrugating her voice. "Just keep moving." And then, just as it felt like hope was lost, a door sprang open ahead, gleaming like a promise in the dark. But Jessica hesitated. Something deep inside warned her this might be another trap, with another dark laugh piercing through the air. Shadows poured like molten ink from the walls, advancing upon them. "Don't you want to find out?" The creature sung, its voice curling through the air with sickening delight. Jessica took a deep breath, racing thoughts colliding in a frenzy. "Mom!" Lisa cried, the terror palpable, heart pounding. She took a step towards the glowing door, realizing they might be standing on the precipice of something far worse than they could imagine. What would happen if they stepped through that door? Would they find freedom, or plunge deeper into the abyss? The door loomed, its light flickering like a heartbeat, pulsing with an urgency that drew Jessica closer. She had one fleeting thought. What if this was their only chance? But the rest of her mind screamed at her to run. The laughter, now an agonized cacophony, resonated within her skull. "Mom, please," Lisa begged, eyes wide with terror. Max clutched her hand, his small fingers trembling. The shadows writhed and stretched around them, as if eager to swallow them whole. "Just a little closer," Jessica whispered, trying to sound brave, but her voice cracked. The laughter morphed again, weaving seeping tendrils of dread deep into her chest. Each note wrapped around her heart like a vice. Jessica, the distorted voice mocked, slithering through her defenses. "You're so close now, what are you waiting for?" She could feel its icy breath, dead and foul, brushing against her cheek. The creeping sensation threatened to choke her. For a moment, she hesitated, her breath shallow, eyes darting from the door to the encroaching shadows. "We need to move," she finally gasped, fueled by desperation. With one last rush of adrenaline, she yanked her children forward. The door beckoned, swirling with promises of salvation, though all reason told her otherwise. They plunged into the blinding light. The moment they crossed the threshold, the world shifted, crushing them into a new reality, away from the laughter, yet not free from terror. They stood in a long, narrow corridor lined with doors, each one shadowed and ominous. An oppressive silence enveloped them, the echo of their heartbeats a frantic symphony in the stillness. "Where are we?" Max's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Jessica replied, scanning the doorways on either side. "But we have to keep moving." They stepped into the corridor. Each door they passed felt like a spine, cold and unyielding. The walls closed in, suffocating in their dark embrace. A rancid odor seeped from one of the doors, a foul stench that clawed at their throats. "Mom." Lisa's voice was high-pitched, laced with panic. "What's behind that door?" Jessica turned to look. The door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness revealing nothing but shadows that seemed to pulse ominously, shifting like something alive. "Don't look, just keep moving," she ordered, each word soaked in the dread of what they might encounter. But Lisa didn't listen. She barely pulled away from her mother, inching closer as if entranced. "I want to see Lisa," Jessica snapped, fear crashing over her like ice water. "Get back here." Just then, there was a sound, soft at first, like a whisper. Then it grew louder, a crackle like dry leaves in autumn. Jessica's heart raced. "We need to go." She grabbed Lisa and pulled her back, a surge of panic pushing her forward. But before they could turn away, the door swung wide open, the darkness spilling out like a thick fog. And there, at the threshold, stood a figure cloaked in a ragged black shroud, its face obscured in shadow. "Come inside," it hissed, the voice a serpentine whisper that coiled around their minds. "You've always wanted to know." "No," Jessica shouted, her body surging forward as she shielded her children. The laughter returned, echoing through the corridor, taunting and mocking. The shadows seemed to stretch, advancing relentlessly. Jessica's instincts ignited. She couldn't let fear paralyze her any longer. "Down the hall. Now." They raced away, the figure's presence lingering, its voice continuing to slither through the air behind them, growing louder. "You can't escape what's already inside you." Jessica felt her heart hammering, her strength waning against the madness that threatened to consume them all. What other horrors awaited them behind the doors, where fabric between reality and nightmare was all but threadbare? As they sprinted, she caught sight of another door at the end, a large, ornate door with symbols etched into its surface. It looked ancient, somehow familiar yet foreboding. Hope clashed with despair. Could they dare find safety behind it, or would they unleash something worse? But before she could reach it, the corridor trembled, darkness swirling violently. The walls echoed the rage of the shadows, and laughter exploded around them, a wicked symphony of madness that shadowed their every step. A scream threatened to rise, but fear gripped her throat. They were running out of time and choices. Would they reach the door in time, or fall prey to whatever hunted them in the dark? "I want to let them take you," she cried as they closed in on the door, unsure of what lay in wait. But what was waiting beyond that door? Could it be a chance at salvation, or the final collapse into a nightmare? The ornate door loomed closer, its engravings flickering in the dim light as if alive, whispering secrets that defied comprehension. Jessica urged her children, fear coursing through her veins like ice. Time ebbed away, each passing second a taunting reminder of the darkness behind them. "Faster!" she shouted, heart racing. Lisa stumbled, her wide eyes darting from the door to the shadows creeping in behind them. Max had fallen slightly behind, his breaths rapid and shallow. The laughter, agonized and mocking, rose in a crescendo, clinging to them like a shroud. Suddenly, the corridor pulsated, the walls contracting, as if breathing, swallowing their desperate movement. Jessica felt a panic seize her throat. What if they made a mistake coming here? The air thickened with dread, making it hard to breathe. "Mom, it's south, too close," Lisa wailed, tugging at Jessica's arm. "Just a little further," Jessica urged, each step a battle against the suffocating darkness creeping ever closer, winding its way around them. Doubt flickered at the edges of her mind. Was the door a true escape, or a trap? They reached the door just as the shadows seemed to claw at their heels. Jessica hurled herself forward, crashing her shoulder against the wood. It barely budged, the intricate carvings feeling almost alive beneath her touch. "Open! Come on!" She slammed her palm against the surface, panic rising. But nothing happened. The laughter swelled, cruel and deep, echoing through the corridor and reverberating off the walls. Then, A voice, soft but clear, cut through the chaos. "Hello?" Jessica, every hair on her body stood on end. She turned, just as the figure emerged from the deep, shadowed end of the corridor. It stepped into the dim light, revealing a face cloaked beneath layers of tattered fabric. Its eyes glowed not with warmth, but with a cold, inhuman hunger. "I told you you can't escape what's inside you," Jessica's heart thundered. The words dug into her thoughts like hooks, pulling her back into memories she fought hard to bury. The nights of darkness, the haunting whispers, the secrets that begged to be uncovered. The walls, the very air around her, seemed to pulse with malevolent energy. "Leave us alone," she screamed, pushing Lisa and Max behind her. "We want to let you take us." The figure merely tilted its head, as if amused. "Take you? Oh, my dear, I'm here to show you," it hissed, stretching an elongated hand toward her. Then the door finally creaked wide open, revealing a blinding light. But this wasn't the light of salvation. It hurt Jessica's eyes, searing into her memories, each flash showing fractured moments of her life, her fears, her failures, her darkest thoughts. "Mom, don't go," Lisa cried, pulling at Jessica's shirt. In that fractional moment of distraction, the figure lunged. Jessica felt a grip around her wrist, icy and relentless. Terror shot through her like electricity. She fought against it, the screams of her children pounding in her ears, drowning out the laughter that echoed all around. "Mom, please." Max's voice melded with Lisa's, thin and terrified. With a primal roar, she yanked her arm back. The grip loosened for just a second, but that was all she needed. Adrenaline surged. She thrust forward, dragging her children with her into the blinding radiance of the door. They all stumbled through, collapsing into the light just as the shadows lunged. But the bright world they stepped into wasn't what she expected. The faces around them were contorted in fear, eyes wide and frantic, almost like they were caught in a different struggle. They stood in a vast hall, walls covered in mirrors reflecting a constant cycle of terror. The laughter echoed, warping her surroundings. Jessica's breath caught. They turned back. The door was gone. Only glass remained, hundreds of faces staring back, each one twisted in horror, mirroring their own fear. "What is happening?" Lisa whimpered, backing away from the unsettling reflections. In that moment, Jessica understood. This wasn't an escape. They had entered another prison, a place where they couldn't hide from themselves but were forced to confront their darkest fears. The laughter grew louder, fueling her terror, a cacophony of pure malice that made her stomach churn. The crowd began to shift, fingers pointing, voices rising, calling her name in a chant of despair. "What does it want?" she whispered, eyes wide with horror. And in the mirrors, she began to see a shadow, a familiar shape lurking just beyond, swinging like a pendulum, inching closer with every heartbeat. "We have to find another way out," she cried, clutching her children tightly, determined not to lose any more ground against the rising tide of dread. But as they turned to run, Lisa's screams sliced through the air, sharper than glass. "Mom, look!" Jessica glanced over her shoulder, horrified to see her daughter's reflection no longer mirrored her own, but instead a nightmarish version loomed back, its eyes drenched in darkness, and it smiled as the shadows began to swirl anew. Jessica felt her resolve slip. This wasn't just a fight for her children, it was for her very soul. But would she have the strength to face the darkness that now danced in the mirrors? Or would she be consumed by what had been unleashed? As the laughter echoed into a deafening crescendo, Jessica knew one truth: the end was only just beginning. Jessica felt the icy grip of despair wrap around her heart as time slipped away. The laughter twisted through the hall, becoming a tangible entity that clawed at her mind. The mirrors, a labyrinth of horrors, reflected not just their appearances but their fears, desires, and the grotesque remnants of choices made long ago. She felt suffocated, as if the very air was laced with bitterness and regret. "Look at me, Mom," Lisa shouted, desperation etched into her voice. "You have to see. We need to get out." Jessica turned back to her daughter, only to find that Lisa's reflection bore a gaping mouth screaming, but no sound escaped. Her skin had turned an unnatural shade, and for a moment, the child she adored morphed into something other, something shadowy and distorted. Roxanne's words echoed in her head. Repress the fear, and it will manifest. The thrumming of her heart overwhelmed her reason. Stay close. She grasped their hands, her pulse racing faster than the mounting dread. They turned, moving deeper into the hall. The reflections shifted like wraiths, haunting shadows slipping in and out of reality. Each mirror told a story, a life lost, a regret lurking, twisted versions of whom they once were. Where are we? Max whimpered. What is this place? I don't know, sweetie, she replied, fighting to keep her voice steady. But fear twisted within her gut like a serpent. We have to keep moving. The crowd around them began to swell and part, revealing a path, but it was littered with dark, swirling shadows, faces trapped in silent screams. As they crept forward, Jessica noticed that the deeper they went, the more their reflections distorted, until they were laughing at themselves, mocking their every fear. Then a terrible realization washed over her. The laughter wasn't coming just from the shadows. They were laughing, too, a haunting cacophony that drowned out the sound of her thoughts. It echoed off the walls, returning to her with an eerie rhythm. Will they consume us too? Max asked, his voice barely more than a whisper, eyes wide with terror. No, she forced out, though self-doubt gnawed relentlessly. We'll find the way back, but the feeling of something stalking them grew heavier. She turned frantically. The ghastly figure from before loomed closer in the glass. Its hollow eyes glinted with malevolence, its lips curling into a sinister grin. You think you can leave? It taunted. Don't you know? You're trapped within. The walls began to shudder, reflecting their fear back at them, as if the hall were alive. The air prickled with tension, tightening around them like a noose. We can't linger here, Jessica shouted, dragging her children forward. It wants us to stay. They burst into a new chamber, brighter but just as terrifying. However, the laughter faded into a low hum, replaced by whispers that slithered into her ears, words soft yet seething. This is your past, face it, embrace it. Panic surged through Jessica. Don't listen, she yelled, grasping her children's arms tightly. Hold on to each other. The room twisted around them, floor and ceiling melting as their reflections multiplied, shattering into shards of glass. Lisa's reflection fractured, her face morphing into a visage that was both familiar and alien. Mom, save us, echoed from countless versions of her daughter. The shadows began to coalesce, taking form, twisted limbs, gnarled hands stretching toward them as if reaching out to pull them down into the abyss. Just as Jessica thought they might be enveloped, a glimmer caught her eye, a portal shining dimly at the far end. Over there, she screamed. Go. They dashed toward it, but the whispers grew louder, a tide of voices insisting she turn back. Face it, Jessica, you cannot escape. But she pressed on, lungs burning with the rush of adrenaline. With each step, the shadows retaliated, claws at their backs grabbing and pulling. Faster, she urged. Just as they reached the portal, a hand shot out from the darkness, clasping her ankle, dragging her back into the chaos. No, she howled, struggling against the force. Mom, Lisa screamed, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, Jessica glanced back. The shadows writhed around them, and she felt her resolve teetering on the edge. Could she truly save them all? She felt the darkness tightening around her heart, threatening to crush them all. The portal pulsed with light. It felt like hope, but also like a trap. With one last surge of strength, she tore herself free, screaming, "We go together." And together they lunged into the unknown, plunging into the blinding light, leaving behind the echoes of their own despair. But as the world around them warped, and they were consumed by a burst of brilliance, Jessica knew this battle was far from over. What awaited them on the other side would challenge everything they thought they knew. Would they emerge whole or lose themselves completely? The answer loomed, hungry and dark, just beyond the threshold. Light enveloped them, blinding and pure, but dark whispers lingered just beyond the boundary. The sensation of being pulled through space was disorienting. When the light finally faded, they landed hard on a cold surface. Jessica blinked against the refocusing world. They were in a fog-shrouded landscape, a twisted grove with gnarly trees that seemed to claw at the sky. The ground was damp and squelched beneath their feet, as if the earth itself were mourning. Where are we now? Max asked, his voice shaky. Fear echoed in the expanse like an unwanted guest. I don't know, Jessica admitted, scanning the strange trees that loomed overhead. They looked almost alive, shifting in the mist like specters. Mom, it feels wrong here, Lisa said, her eyes darting nervously. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed through the trees. It was as if the forest itself were growling. Stay close, Jessica snapped, though her heart raced with a gnawing dread. They stepped deeper into this new nightmare, hesitation chewing on every step. The whispering shadows, like sickly tendrils, slipped through the trees, reaching out to them with invasive grace. Dark figures moved just out of sight, creeping into their vision only to vanish again, leaving a lingering sensation of being hunted. Is it going to eat us? Max's voice trembled. No. Jessica's voice rose, laced with a fierce protectiveness. But uncertainty tugged at her. This place was haunting, more so than before. As they pressed on, the mist thickened, swirling like a living creature, mycelium drawing them toward the center. A clearing opened up before them, and it felt as though the world had suddenly paused. In the center lay an ancient tree, its trunk impossibly wide and knotted with age. Its bark seemed to shift and breathe, revealing faces twisted in sorrow, trapped in the wood. They cried silently, their mouths moving with no sound, a cacophony of despair hanging in the air. Jessica took a shaky step back. What is this? Look. Lisa pointed to the ground near the tree. There were markings, a mosaic of cracked earth forming strange symbols that pulsed faintly, as if alive. With each pulse, whispers grew clearer, invading her mind like splinters. The whispers rose into a chorus, alluring yet menacing. Embrace it, accept it, join us, Mom. Please, Lisa cried, her hands trembling as she clung tighter to Jessica. The grip of her daughter's small fingers reminded Jessica of what was at stake. It wasn't just their lives, it was their very souls. Don't listen, she screamed, but her voice was drowned out by the echoes that surrounded them. Shadows began to dance at the periphery, inching closer, becoming more tangible, feeding off their fear. What do we do? Max's voice cracked, desperation clouding his eyes. Jessica's mind raced. She recognized this moment, the weight of past mistakes and futures painted by fear. We have to make it back to the portal, she decided, steeling herself against the terror that threatened to crush them. But we can't let them get in our heads. With that, she steered them backward, her heart thrumming loudly in her ears, the whispers growing ever louder, almost mocking. You can't escape. You belong here. The ground beneath them shook violently, and the figures in the trees howled in a chorus of despair, trying to reach for them, dragging tendrils that snatched at their ankles. Run! Jessica screamed, pulling her children along, adrenaline surging as the shadows howled, and the earth seemed intent on swallowing them whole. But as they turned, something blocked their escape. A gargantuan figure loomed just outside the clearing, its face a grotesque mockery of human agony. Hollow eyes burned into theirs, waiting to ensnare their spirits. Jessica's heart dropped. No, no. Please, she felt the pull of hopelessness creeping back as the dark figure stepped forward, the shadows thickening. In their desperation, they were about to cross a line they could not return from. Yet at that moment, a flicker of something ignited inside her. We will not give in, she shouted into the abyss, clenching her fist around her. Children's hands tighter. Their future depended on her strength. What would it take to fight this terrifying darkness? Would they find a way to escape this nightmare, or would this be their end? The shadows closed in, clawing at their sanity, and Jessica felt the first undeniable crack in her resolve. The ground trembled beneath them, a pulsing reminder of the ominous creature blocking their path. Its shape shifted, the shadows circling it, giving rise to a nightmare birthed from every horror story Jessica had ever heard. This was not just a figure of darkness. It was fear personified, an embodiment of despair that whispered her own insecurities back to her. Back! Go back! Jessica urged, adrenaline igniting her limbs. She pulled at Max and Lisa, but the hold of the darkness seemed to increase with every second. The atmosphere thickened, and her breath became labored. The towering figure grinned, a wide, ghastly smile splitting its face, the hollow eyes sparkling with malice. Join us. Lose yourself in the void, it crooned, its voice a low hum. reverberating through the air like the toll of a distant bell. Jessica felt the sickening sensation of her mind unraveling, shadows clawing for her thoughts, for her sanity. "Mom," Max shouted, his voice cracking like thunder against the stillness. "Hold on to each other." Jessica's voice shattered the oppressive silence as she gripped their hands tighter, drawing them closer. "We're not giving in." Panic surged, pounding like waves against her chest. The dark figure moved, an impossible speed carrying it forward. Its limbs distorted, blending into the shadows surrounding it. Jessica could hear the trees creak, their branches now curling like fingers, reaching out to them as if to offer a twisted embrace. Lisa's face, pale and filled with terror, cut through the horror around them. "Mom, we can't stay here." "I know." Jessica's heart raced, each beat an echo of the screams trapped within the tree. They needed to find their way back, to the light that had once brought them here. She glanced back, searching for that ethereal glow, and her stomach dropped. It was gone, swallowed by the encroaching darkness. "Run." She didn't need to say it twice. They sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, the oppressive weight of despair on their shoulders. Cold tendrils lashed out, grazing Jessica's ankle, sending a jolt through her body like icy electricity. "Don't look back," Max shouted, his face stricken with fear, but the air quivered, and the growls from the trees transformed into a chorus of wails. Jessica couldn't help herself. She risked a glance. The tree stood ominously behind them, its faces now twisted in agony, mouths open wide in silent screams. A sense of wrongness wrapped around her. Were they once innocent souls, now forever bound in this wretched place? The gargantuan figure lurked behind the veil of shadows, its presence tangible like a cold sweat creeping down her back. "You cannot escape. You belong to us," it shouted, its voice layered with rage and sorrow, causing the very ground to crack beneath their feet. An unearthly shriek erupted from the tree, cutting through Jessica's thoughts like glass. The faces on the bark started to stretch, their cries mixing with the whispers, forming a ghostly choir that lured her with promises of peace. "Mom, please let us just go." Lisa's small voice cut through the chaos. Jessica shook herself. "We need to find the portal." But as they pressed onward, the shadows shifted surrounding, clawing at their hearts. What if there was no way back? Terror lanced through her as a realization settled. The things that lurked here were not merely hunting them, they craved their essence. Desperation fueled her. She yanked her children along, focusing only on the flecks of hope that swam in murky memories. "Look for anything that glimmers," she yelled, searching for an escape, knowing the dark would claw for her weakness. The path before them thickened with darkness, almost alive, writhing like smoke as whispers drew together, becoming screams that echoed through every fiber of her being. Let them enjoin us forever. Would they find a way back to the light? Or was some part of them already lost to this wretched place? Suddenly, out of the corner of her eye, a flash of pale light flickered through the haze. Was it real, or just another trick of the darkness? The answer was everything, and everything depended on whether they would dare to reach for it. Jessica gritted her teeth against the shrieks echoing in her head. The shadows lunged at her, hungry and relentless, but she wouldn't let them. Hot tears streamed down her face as she shoved the fear deep inside. "Hold tight," she gasped, yanking Lisa and Max along as they bolted forward. The dim flicker of light drew closer, bathed in a golden warmth. Was this the portal? It pulsed with a beacon of promise, the kind of hope they needed. Panic lunged at her, wrapping around her heart like a vice. "Don't stop," she cried, pushing through the oppressive air, forcing herself to believe in the light ahead. The shadows screamed, their voices a blend of anguish and fury. "You can't escape," they howled, each word colliding with their resolve like punches. Again, she risked a glance behind. The figure was gaining on them, a mass of darkness swelling and twisting, its eyes glittering with malevolence, hunger. Her stomach churned. They had to keep moving. "Over there," Lisa screamed, pointing toward the shimmering glow. Jessica felt a rush of adrenaline course through her veins. "Run." With each frantic step, she felt the shadows clawing and biting, desperate to pull them back into the abyss. "We need to reach it." Just as they surged into the clearing, Jessica felt the ground shift beneath her, icy fingers wrapping around her ankles, dragging her down. "Mom!" Max cried, his voice laced with terror as he was pulled back. She couldn't let them go. "No. Come on." With every ounce of strength, Jessica jerked back, gripping Max's wrist. The shadows tightened like a noose, and she felt desperation clawing at her insides. "We're stronger together. Hold on." Then, spurred by wild determination, she lunged forward, wrenching Max free and pushing them all toward the radiance. The weight of darkness pressed around them, but the warmth of the light ignited something fierce within her. The shadows screeched in fury, lunging forward, a tidal wave of despair that threatened to crush them all. "Come back!" they screamed, fingers writhing. Jessica could feel their cold breath on her neck as they closed in. "Almost there," she yelled, ignoring the cacophony. The light shimmered, becoming a vibrant hue that pulled at her heart like a magnet. Clenching her children's hands tighter, she surged into the brilliance, throwing herself and her kids into the warm glow. With an explosive rush, they were sucked through and tumbled onto solid ground, breathless and gasping. The darkness faded, and they found themselves laid out in an open field beneath a twilight sky, the stars twinkling above them like the eyes of angels looking down. They were free. Mom, Max panted, staring up at the expansive sky, relief flooding his features. Jessica pulled them close, wrapping her arms around their shivering bodies as sobs of joy fell from her lips. They had made it back. But as Jessica glanced around, an unsettling feeling tugged at her. In the distance, silhouetted against the horizon, shadowy figures gathered, watching from the edges, and among them was a familiar shape. It was the hollow-eyed figure, grinning. The remnants of darkness were still there, lurking just beyond the threshold of safety. "Mom," Lisa whispered, clinging tighter to Jessica's side as if seeking reassurance. Jessica's heart raced, but she forced a smile. "We're safe here," she affirmed, grounding herself in the hope of a new beginning. But as shadows ebbed and flowed in the edges of her vision, she knew they would always linger, a constant reminder of the terror they had faced. "What now?" she murmured, though deep down, she understood. They would take this journey together, day by day, to heal from what had haunted them, finding strength in their unity and love. She watched as her children settled quietly beside her, their fingers intertwined, a tapestry of resilience. The darkness may have come close to claiming them, but it had only reinforced their bond. Together, they would endure the memories, the whispers, and the shadows. Together, they would face tomorrow. As Jessica pulled her kids closer, a renewed sense of purpose ignited within her. This was not the end. It was merely a new beginning, a chance to reclaim their lives, to bask in the brightness of the stars overhead. And they would never look back. If you enjoyed this chilling conclusion, you need to subscribe immediately to our channel so you never miss another exclusive story. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and show your support. I want to hear your thoughts, so fill the comments section with your reactions and wild theories about this ending. And don't wait even one more second, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Your support matters, and only true fans know how important it is to stand by the channel.